Howdy, fellow skeptics. This is Lester, the Skeptic Tank, here once again. Quasi unboxing here. I'm going to introduce you guys to a game I grew up playing in my parents' home. It's a game called Pusoy, spelled Pusoy. And I think this would be a good illustration of how I go about evaluating things or assessing things. Premise behind it is it's 13 card poker. So starting with that, jokers are taken out. So out of the entire deck, you should have, when you've dealt it to the three other players, whoever's chosen to shuffle and deal, they no one there should be no cards remaining to draw to when cards are distributed or drawn. By the time I forget the pattern. I had it in my head growing up, but pretty much once you take the jokers out, once all the cards are dealt, there are no remaining cards to put in some deck to be set aside. And I'm gonna see how cool these look, how good these feel, especially when they're fresh out of the box. Kind of figured, oh, that's cool. It looks like a Chinese dragon, at least to me it does. Not that I care, but it's a dragon. So, again, I'm going to take jokers are right here. Okay, cool. Different colored jokers. There are various ways to play the game. And let me see if there's a straggling. Okay. Really? There's an app for... Yeah, there's an app apparently. I guess if you're gonna play different card games, I grew up with trying to think what I grew up playing. War was one, Spades was another, I think Hearts was another. There is another game in Filipino culture called Pusoy. I didn't get in contact with that game until like maybe 5th or 6th grade. I had schoolmates who that was their jam. I played it some, and we had some relatives who played it too, but Pusoy was the jam within my immediate family and the sphere of family friends I gathered over the decades. We're still in touch, which is a real blessing. So I believe I taken all of it. So it feels kind of nice. The fonts look fine. Sometimes I have a feel for the jumbo print, but this looks fine. I can read them. For now, the cards feel nice and glossy. Some people may not be into that. So without further ado, so as I mentioned, Pusoy is 13 card poker, and I'm going to try to, it's been a while since I've shuffled the deck of cards. Having been in contact with the various family friends, each person in the games we played, everyone had their style. Some would do it at different angles. I forgot what this would be called, but that was one thing. I think that's what my sisters like to do. And then sometimes I think some people don't like certain ways if the cards are bent a certain way. We'll see. I guess there's a way to reconcile. So this is the standard shuffle. I didn't do any of that fluffy looking thing. Again, I forgot the name of that gesture. So I'm going to give an example. I'm going to draw. And what our family friends would do is we would cut. We'd take a portion of the deck. And I think cutting is a universal term within all pokers, whether that's Texas Hold'em. And that's another game I came in contact with. But that was when that was going on, that was when it was all over the place on ESPN. That would be televised. And some of the trippier stuff you'd see on ESPN would be Scrabble. Like, in terms of pots, the pot was, I believe, 50 grand at the time. But it was televised, and we would catch that during some of our breaks. So, for example, 2. Okay, if I drew this out and I were to count, if I were to count, I believe, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, I would count 1 as myself, and then 2 would be the person on my left, because I think we would go clockwise. So if I go that way, and then if I felt so inclined, I might do a couple more shuffles. So maybe that's 1. 2. And then make that 3. So I have to keep in mind I drew a 2. And I would just go through 4, set the cards up for 4 players. So I'm just going to make sure I do it in a manageable way. That way it's distinct from all the others. And so, generally in my experience, the one before the person I start with, so for example, I would count myself as 1 and the person on my left is 2. So by the time I'm done dealing, the last card should end up with mine, or should end up in my stack. And if that's not the case, then it's often tagged as a misdeal or, redeal. So there might be another round of shuffling and so forth. Another round of cutting. We also had a family friend who was really into Pai-Gow. I played that some with him and others, especially when they were doing I think there was a game that was Caesar's Palace for the Super Nintendo. I wonder if I missed Delta already. Let's see. And then if that were the case, we would count each other's cards. So I'm going to go right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh, each player should end up with 13 cards. I'm going to try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, this means I clearly had 1 too many cards. I think I ended up with my next. Let's see. I'm going to try that again. This might end up a deep dive in the sense of the thing with Pusoy is, yeah, you'll find yourself with probably an unworkable hand. So as I mentioned, 13 cards. You got 3 on the top, 5 in the middle, and then 5 on the bottom. So as you're probably thinking about it, it's going to be in the pecking order of good, better, best. Again, good. Usually good. Well, it should be in this manner. So the top is always going to have to be good. Middle is going to have to be better. And the bottom 5 are going to be the best. Now, growing up, these are the rules we used in that. Well, to start, when we go good, better, best, you can't have a conflict among your 3 sets. So in other words, you can't have a better hand in the middle than your bottom, or anything to that effect. And usually the top card, though it can get a little overlooked, is that there are certain things when you look at the top and you compare them against the other players. There are certain, I believe it's usually going to be based on suits. So like, combination of say ace jack king, and that gets inspected against. So going back to that, I have a dragon card. Oh, no wonder. The straggler was throwing me off. That's why. Okay, so let's read this. Dragons. Oh, the dragon deck. They're trying to make a. Oh, great. And everything just fell out. Again, ups and downs of a glossy deck. Kind of glossy deck. It feels glossy to me anyway. Um, so, yep, I didn't know that was going to be there. I'm just so used. Because Bicycle is a brand that's been around, and thankfully inflation hasn't hurt it. Back in the 90s, when we would play as kids, cards were about $2.50. I got these from my local Rite Aid for maybe $4 to $5, which isn't terrible. It's easy to say, yeah, but it shouldn't have come down to that kind of price. But I get it. I understand. So I'm gonna shuffle it again. And there are certain hand dynamics. There's a term in the game called luck. If your hand contained any of these specific lucks, you can basically end the game. As I grew up, and as the community, or I would say the circle, grew and we gained experience, there are various ways to play the betting scheme. So you might have a main pot, which would be like 2 out of 3. That's usually how one is determined the winner. Now, if there's like a stalemate, and there have been many cases in growing up where we found that no one really had the upper hand, that would be called a tie or a table, and that would mean more opportunities to increase the pot. And that means like, okay, we're going to do another round. So how much is this round going to be? So the most basic way to place your bet is whoever the overall. It would be who's going to be the. There it goes. That's much better. The last card fell on me. I'm still keeping in mind the number 2 I drew for the dealing to start. Where was I going to go with this? So the most basic bet scheme would be overall. So who would had the best 2 out of 3 in the hand set? That would be the basic way. Throughout my time, I've noticed that the family friends would institute side bets. Sometimes they'll have one set for overall, and then sometimes they'll do a side bet. They'll agree to a side bet, like who had the best top, who had the best middle, who had the best bottom, and so forth. So the funny thing about, and I'm going to show this finally. Normally I don't do this in a poker game, but to kind of bring to this idea of appraisal, these cards, at least when I look at them, they're not the best. And I apologize if you can't see all the cards. Let me see if I can spread them out. So, a lot of the time, but not all the time, it comes down to what cards are handed to you. But as in life, you just make do with what you have in front of you. You just work to the best of your ability while keeping in mind the rules of the game. Uh, how to set up your 13 cards. So let's see if I can flash this in the camera here. Not the best, at least not up front. So I tend to look at things I can arrange, like what can I make my hand better, or my good, better, and best. Um, so just like any poker game, you look at straights, you look at full houses, you look at flush possibilities, straights, pairs, uh, that kind of stuff. Three of a kind, four of a kind. Now, in terms of lucks, four of a kind was one of those. Royal flush was one of those. Straight flush was one of those. Now, I'm just working off of memory. Now, as we grew as a community and just kind of our experience to make the game go longer, is we've kind of had a community rule about no, we're going to rule out luck for this hand. It's like it has to be agreed upon within the within the table. So I'm going to make do with what I've got. I see what I have. Because what can I make it? What can I do to make my hand overall better? So I'm looking at the various combinations I can get away with. So if I just work off of one idea, it tells me, okay, this is what I have left, what I can do, and then I go, wait a minute, that if I go in one direction and I see what else I have to account for, that means in my mind, well, I've left myself only with these. What I'm looking at is one option and what I think can be stronger. So I have to figure out what I want to give up. What options do I want to give up? Do I want to have a really strong hand at the bottom, or do I want something that is more balanced? Or what are my chances of winning up top? So I tried one possibility. I'm gonna see what I get with off of this. Do I want do I want a flush? Do I want to work with a stronger set of pairs? What do I want to do? Okay, so I see I have some things. Uh-huh. And what are the chances, though, that they would have something better than me? So I'm going to try to work with what I've got. Just weigh it against what might be a stronger combination. And I have to figure out, okay, what's worth the shot to take. Because at least I know I have one pair I can work with versus how many. I'm trying to think if I am going to self myself short in terms of pairing options. Well, I think I found my answer. So I normally again don't show my hand. You're not really supposed to show your hand, But I'm going to just kind of take you through the decision making process or ideas what to think. So this is just an example hand. Again, trying to work with the glossiness for the moment. I don't know if gloss actually lessens over time, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. So this is option one. Let me see if I can make it more visible. Let's see. Oh, it's about to fall. Okay, let's see if I can highlight that. Try to make it flat. Or I'll just say I have a K8 5 on the top. I have two twos and two aces, and then a flush. Okay? I don't know if you guys can see that, but all right. That seems like a strong hand. Now, oftentimes sacrifices are made so that the top doesn't appear too weak. So, yeah, technically, I I'm gonna just roll with it because again, you want to think about the strength of pairs that you might have in your hand. So, irregardless of what would happen, I actually have. It's pretty much a wash because I the pair of aces will always will at least for this hand will always be part of the equation. Now the next thing I have to ask myself is do I what do I want to do in terms of strengthening my top to the best of my ability? Okay? Because depending on how the two pair is laid out, usually the fifth card, if someone happens to have a similar pair, they'll use the fifth card in the middle to determine which is actually stronger. So since I have two aces and two fives and a six in the middle, well, if that happens to be the case, someone with a similar pair might actually have a queen, a jack, anything higher than my six. So that's the risk I have to take. So that's what I've got. So I figured at the bottom, I got a full house versus the flush. So usually what would happen is when they look at that, like who won the top. So depending on how the table agrees, are we going to show all our cards at once, or we're going to go top and then are we going to go top, or we're going to go, and then we're going to go to middle, and then we're going to go to the bottom. So this is what makes Pusoy a little entertaining because yeah, you might have a really good hand or at least a workable hand. And it's just this idea of looking at what you have in front of you and making the most out of that. And in terms of appraisal, as I'm trying to circle it back, especially in life, or or if we're doing entertainment, or if we're talking about music, the best. Sometimes you may not have the best cards in your deck. You may not have the best pieces in your deck. You may not have the best people on your team, but if you have that strong sense as a team or you have that leadership, you can find a way to make all the pieces fit and come up with as strong as a team possible. Examples would be the movies I've seen recently. Sound of Freedom may not have the big drawing names, but there are various components that allowed the movie to work. It may not be, I don't know if it's Oscar worthy or not, but I can tell there are good qualities and they made it work. I didn't want to leave the theater. When I watched Equalizer 3 and Gran Turismo, I actually watched it back to back. I watched Equalizer 3 and then Gran Turismo. Yeah. They may not have the names to draw. Yes, there was Orlando Bloom, but does he command, does his presence command the screen? Don't know. I think there was that one film where he was supposedly the featured protagonist, Kingdom of Heaven. Not sure. I do have a copy, or I might have had a copy in the past, but I honestly haven't watched the movie yet. But I think he did a good job. He did his role well. The protagonist did the role well. It's like versus Denzel. Denzel, because he's the not, I don't know if he's the center of the film. It's easy to see that, but he still has to have compelling pieces that can do their roles well, which I would say they did. Uh, and to its credit, the overall production didn't make the movie super long. Now, Gran Turismo, I thought there was a point where they could have just, uh, not to spoil it, there was a moment where you thought they could have ended the movie right there. But no, they gave me a reason to, okay, something ended up happening. Okay, this needs to be pushed out so we can see it all the way through. Um, so, you can look at your favorite tasks, your favorite movies, music. They may not have the best instruments, they may not have the best players, but they find a way to make it work. And that's that's what I would like to take away, at least in this brief tutorial. I don't know what more I can demonstrate with Pusoy, unless I have 3 other players. And if we somehow stream a Pusoy game at some point in the future, I don't know. But as far as the cards these sell themselves, well, pretty solid. Although I wonder what that bicycle app is like. Interesting. Maybe it may give me some other card games to learn. But yeah, not bad looking. Not your standard bicycle images. Because I remember like the classic look to the bicycle brand of cards. I forgot. I just remember like it's like a series of circles and then you would see a bicycle. But cool, nice little change up. All right, guys. There'll be some other videos coming. I have had some stuff in the back burner, and one especially in the back burner. Um, one quick one, um, but that will be coming soon. I'm sorry. I know I had some stuff coming in, and haven't really brought anything new. Life gets in the way. I was in Tennessee. I will be going to Idaho on Friday, and we'll see if I bring all the things I want to bring. But there'll be a point where I just want to unplug. That might be the case. After my classes are done each day, I'll probably just hang out at the hotel, maybe consume some YouTube, and then call it a day, and then go to bed. All right. Take it easy, fellow skeptics. Hope your day is going well on this hump day, and we'll catch you later.